At the beginning of May 2017, a grandiose event took place in Barcelona, which can boldly be called historic for medieval battle in Ukraine. At the Nations Cup, which is commonly called the World Cup, the Ukrainian team defeated the main favorite Russia for the first time in the most spectacular category, 21-on-21. From that moment, the historical medieval battle began, a completely different life. This sport in our country received official status and has been accepted into the family of non-Olympic sports. Listen about the heroes of the national team of Ukraine who earned fame on the battlefields in Catalonia in this stellar story. For 7 years, we have come to compete in this event. 7 shifts and 7 generations of the national team of Ukraine tried to win, but no team achieved this before ours. We physically trained all year alone, making plans and thinking up various tactics, and eventually one of these tactics was a success for us and we won first place. On the last day of the competition, the first round went to the Russian Knights, but the Ukrainian athletes were not despondent about this and did not give up right to the victorious end. The guys did not relax, did not sour, but on the contrary, somehow they mobilized because everyone understood that we have one round and if we win, we will advance to the next round. So they were well aware of the fact that they still had a chance to return home as champions. If someone wants to attach some political background, there is no political motivation. If it was not Russia, we would want to remove them the same way. The next Battle of Nations can be the most anticipated, because the Russian team will try hard to regain this title from us. Ukrainians and Russians still remain the strongest and most titled in this sport, but what our fighters did in Barcelona is nothing short of sensational. In the final of the 21-on-21 battle, they defeated the presumably invincible ones. The main thing is that we showed the whole world that there are no unbeaten opponents. We have been coming to this for a very long time and we won. And I'm sure that the next year we will be able to win in other categories. I cannot say that Russia lost its leadership. I would say that we have simply come one step closer to taking their spot as the leaders. The rules in this sport are quite simple. The opponent must be knocked down in any way. A footboard, a kick-off, a throw, a push, everything goes. Many fall under the hail of blows with real swords, shields and halberds. The weapons here are not sharpened, as was the case in the Middle Ages, but the blows can be extremely heavy. At first sight, it is aggressive and simple. In fact, no one here is ahead. All teams fight according to their pre-designed tactic. Hit and run. Here, it does not get through because one way or another, those who have the right tactics will win. Here, you need to think, you need to watch, you need to support your own people. But of course, it's a team sport, and those who have tactics are certainly more likely to win the battle. What we saw in Barcelona was that we had a tactic and we acted according to it and came out victorious.
Если в жарком бою испытал, что почем, значит, нужные книги ты в детстве читал.
Some come to this sport after reading fantasy books, some come after watching films about knights and the Middle Ages, and others come just by chance wondered to see what is happening and how everything takes place. A friend of mine in a combat sambo pub suggested to me, "Do you want to try yourself in something new? You know, I'm a lover of a new and especially contact sport. So why not?" And this is likely a new sensation for many. It gives a powerful adrenaline surge and even a taste of the thrill of victory and glory. Because when you win, it's always nice, when you're applauded and you take home some medals. If you want to win, you must learn to wait and be patient, analyze, train and gain good experience. Then victory will definitely come. To some extent, a medieval battle is a business for romantics. Perhaps they long for knights of bold and stunning beautiful princesses. For some, it's a wall-to-wall street fight, while for others it is a fight for the fans. Very different people are gathered here and everyone perceives this battle in different ways. For me, it is probably more a philosophy of self-education and internal satisfaction from the battle. Today, this form of sport in Ukraine is developing rapidly. There are already approximately 50 clubs in this sport with their own hierarchy, straightment rules and laws. Seeing as we have engaged in such battles in Mongolia, my club and I are trying in some new ways to be like an elite detachment of the army of Genghis Khan. And the motto of Genghis Khan was, if you're afraid, do not do it. If you do it, do not be afraid. In fact, we stick to this motto both on the battlefield and in life. In a historic medieval battle, they fight 1-on-1, 3-on-3, 5-on-5, 10-on-10, and 21-on-21. The main difference between this sport and others is that you have to fight as a team. Everyone wants to get an advantage and throw down as many opponents as their physical stature and endurance allows. If they fall, they put all their strength and efforts into trying to drag their opponent down with them. This is the only sport fighting contact game in which you can fight in a more than one-on-one format. You cannot focus on just one opponent, and so you need to look around, feel your team, feel where your rival strangers are, and know when to press or when you can just hold on to your teammates and they will do the work for you. In this case, the experience of practicing martial arts, boxing, different kinds of wrestling and rugby is extremely appropriate and useful. The main thing is to have the desire to learn something new and to have no fear. After the first training and fights, the warriors become fond of this sport. It all started with Tolkien's Lord of the Rings trilogy. There were humans, elves, gnomes, trolls, wizards, beasts, and all kinds of their living beings in this novel. It was a kind of romance that began with a young boy's fantasy, and when it gradually turned into bloody battles, I understood that this sport is a good source of adrenaline, especially taking into account that I have a daily humdrum office job. The captain of the Ukrainian national team of historic medieval battle was interested in the Middle Ages after he joined the club, and in his childhood he loved books about history, but he read many other books of a slightly different nature. I loved books about dinosaurs as a child, but it turned out that, any man is somehow interested in weapons. I was indirectly interested in the Middle Ages, but I delved a bit deeper into this realm and I joined this club. I started getting interested in books about the Middle Ages and some specific books about armor and weapons in order to understand the century, the regions, and the armor that was worn in battle. That's actually the way it all came about. The armor and weapons used in the battles are close replicas of those that were used in the 11th, 13th centuries. They protect the body from serious injuries, and although scars abhor man's physique, these warriors come here not for the scars, but more for the thrill and the rush of the sport. I do not want to get injured here. This is not my burning desire. I come for a good, honest and thrilling sports championship just the way it should be. Despite all the pain, the thrill of victory and the glory is worth it, and I go home satisfied. Oddly enough, these aggressive warriors on the battlefield have very peaceful professions in their everyday life. Among them are office workers, students, managers, and doctors. They earn their living in other spheres. They come here for emotions, adrenaline, fun, and relaxation. I am a surgeon. Of course, there is a great risk of injury to my hands and head, so I try to protect my hands and head as much as possible so that it does not affect my profession. But maybe I have such a temperament that I need some place where I can get a mental and physical release to spill out this energy outside of my daily workplace. Reliable armor is a guarantee that damages and injuries will bypass you. It's not enough just to be lucky. You are better off ensuring yourself with reliable protection. After each tournament, ammunition is carefully scanned and defects are eliminated. After a barrage of fierce attacks, the body armor tends to deteriorate very quickly. I change my helmet every 2 years. I recently changed the case. The previous one I had lasted for 4 years. I have had this leg armor for a year. Before that, it lasted for 3 or 4 years. In general, after 2 or 3 years engaging in this sport, you need to sort through the armor and replace it or adjust the straps. In any case, sooner or later, metal fatigue sets in, and after 2 or 3 years, your battle gear needs to be replaced, especially that part of the armor that constantly takes heavy blows from swords, battle axes, and maces, like the helmet, for example. The medieval fighters, despite the fact that all of them have at one time or another received many bruises, abrasions and more serious injuries, do not consider their sport to be too traumatic. They say there are no more damages than in football and snowboarding. Their families got used to this extreme form of sport. They raised me like a man, and they knew what they were giving me and where I was going. And when I started to do it, well, how interesting it was. Everything is real. The only thing is that my mother painfully tolerates some battles, but she worries about me. Mother will always be my mother. Both my wife and sister support me, and everyone is happy that I enjoy my hobby. I'm delighted by the fact that they understand that I thoroughly enjoy this rough and sometimes bloody sport. At first, not everybody perceived medieval battles as something very serious. Knights, armor, and medieval weapons is more like a fiction for them, but their opinion changed after they first saw how realistic everything is here on the battlefield. My family, of course, looked at it strangely, and my friends did as well, because prior to that I had engaged in hand-to-hand combat. People know what it is, and then I tell them that I'm out there in the knight's armor. I fight, and they look at me and think, what is this? Some tomfoolery? But when they come to see how all these battle axes and maces break into pieces and really understand that these are not jokes, they still respect the sport, and for the most part people enjoy it as an exhilarating form of entertainment. The successes of the Ukrainian national team in May at the Nations Cup did not go unnoticed. Historic medieval battles were included on the list of non-Olympic sports. Over the past several years, the interest in this entertaining sport has increased significantly. While armor is not cheap and cannot be found in sports stores, it is not an outrageously expensive sport. Our sport probably seems like an expensive sport for us because the outfit costs about 2,000 euros. But at the same time, if you compare it with motocross, for example, or with yachting, then I think that this is a fairly cheap sport. The armor costs from the $1,000 to $2,000 approximately, depending on the level of the fighter and on the discounts that smiths who specialize in making them offer. The sport is young, but very entertaining and dynamic. The winners of the Nations Cup are convinced that historic medieval battles have a great future, especially after such victories as they managed to gain in the finals in Barcelona. If we give the sport a good push, it will take the top sports because people are still interested in it. It's like the mixed martial arts that existed once upon a time, and today they're a thing of the past. And people liked it because they saw something very cool, something new, and not just a pure classic. I think here it will be approximately the same case. The main thing is to give it some impetus.
Еще теплым мечом и доспехи надев. Что почем, разберись, кто ты, трус или избранник судьбы, и попробуй на вкус настоящей борьбы.